Hello. Some kids going by outside. We'll do this again. What is up, everyone? It's Mark, and today we're going to do episode 2 of Pandemic Pantry. So the other day, we did the first episode, I guess. I made some gnocchi with leftover mashed potatoes. If you didn't catch that episode, you can catch it in the card up here. Today, I think we're going to make bread. And I don't have any yeast, but there's a way around that, and I can show you. So let's get started. All right, so I am using a normal bread recipe as the basis for this, and that's what's going to be down in the description. But I'm going to vary from that a little bit in that, like I said, I'm not using yeast, although I kind of am using yeast. So this is a method that you can do to extend yeast when you don't have much left, or kind of keep yeast going from bread to bread. But basically, if you save about a walnut-sized piece of dough from whatever bread you make with yeast, then you can throw that into a bowl with a cup of flour and a cup of water, mix it, and give it 12, 24 hours to kind of do its yeasty thing. And this is what we ended up with. So then this just goes into the recipe in place of a cup of the liquid and a cup of the flour, because it's already in here. So now we need the rest of the ingredients, and then we can put this together. Okay, so we've got our ingredients. The recipe calls for 425 grams or 3 3/8 cups of flour. For this, we've got -1 cup because, again, there's a cup of flour in here. We need 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt or coarse salt. We need 1.25 cups of milk. We've got 1/4 cup here because, again, there's a cup of water in here already for the liquid. I'm not too worried about not having the little bit of fat and stuff that goes along with the rest of the milk, because I use water in this. You can't really put milk in it and then let it sit out for a day. So it is what it is. I think it'll still make a decent bread. Then we've got 4 tablespoons of butter. And then we're going to need 2 tablespoons of honey. And the way we're going to do this, normally you would heat the butter, microwave the butter and the milk and the honey to get it warm, not too hot because you don't want to kill the yeast. By the way, we'll do that now. We're going to put the 1.5 teaspoons of salt into right into the flour. If you weren't doing this method, you would use 3.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, and you would put that right in the flour and mix that in with the flour just like the salt. Note about that. Instant yeast is not the same thing as active dry yeast. Instant yeast is the stuff that you can mix right into your recipe. It's dry, coarse stuff. Active dry yeast is the stuff that you have to put in warm water and let it do its thing first before you put it in. You can really use either one if you really had to, but you have to do it the right way. So this recipe calls for instant yeast. You would throw it right in. You just wouldn't want to take active dry yeast and throw it right in. It wouldn't really help you. So what we're going to do instead of, normally it would have you pour the liquid stuff once it's warmed into the flour. We've already got this bowl with liquidy stuff going, so I'm going to prepare the honey, butter, milk mixture. I'm going to add it to this, and then we're going to put the rest of our flour in and get it together into a dough. Okay, now this butter is hot, which you'll recall I said not to do. In fact, let's just see, out of curiosity. It's about 120 degrees. All right, so we're going to put the milk in and cool it down. And we will also stir in our honey. And no, I'm not measuring the honey, I just threw it in there. 95, 96 degrees. Not bad. I think ideally we just want it to be under 100. But it'll also cool when it mixes into what's in here. And I am using bread flour for this. You do not have to. You can get away with all-purpose for this, and it should be just fine. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there is some freaky bird outside my house right now. I feel like this might need a little extra flour. So a little less than 1/4 cup. Once we get this incorporated, basically all we're going to do is let this sit for about 15-20 minutes, and that'll just help it be a little more pliable when we're ready to knead it. Alright, it's kind of a craggy dough, but that's okay. It'll become a little bit more pliable when we let it sit. So I'm going to cover this and we'll come back to it. All right, so our dough has been sitting for about 20 minutes, so it is time to knead. So we're going to just put a little bit of flour out on the surface. And this is going to tend to be a pretty sticky dough, I think, so. And we want to knead this until it is smooth and holds together. It can be tacky, but it shouldn't really be sticking to the board anymore. This will take a little bit. Okay, so to knead, you kind of want to fold it over on itself and push, and turn it, and fold it over on itself and push, and turn it, and fold it over on itself and push. And right now this dough is kind of craggy still. It still hasn't fully come together. The reason that you let it sit for that 15 minutes is so that the flour can hydrate a little more evenly, so it's less lumpy, less patches of dry versus patches of wet. Kind of evens out the moisture. And this dough is going to get pretty tight and firm, and it's pretty elastic. It wants to pull back. That's all right. That's kind of what we want. That's the gluten forming. Sorry, folks that can't have gluten. Yeah, when you fold it over and it's smooth and not cracking, it's probably good. I think we're almost there. So I'm going to bring this together into a ball. And get a bowl. A little bit of oil in there. Dough ball, and I'll just try and get it evenly coated and situated. Now it needs to rise, so we're going to let the dough rise somewhere warm. Hopefully in an hour or so it'll expand quite a bit, maybe double in size. That's kind of what we're looking for. So we'll see how it goes. So while we're waiting for the bread, I figured I'll mention this because I talked about it in the last video. This is the shepherd's pie. It was going to be dinner last night, but instead we made the gnocchi. And it was dinner from Saturday. So whenever we reheat a casserole like this, what I like to do is you know, otherwise it gets sort of liquidy and everything kind of falls into the part that's served, is wait for it to cool so that things kind of solidify a little bit more. It's not all as oozy, and then push it back and put sort of a stopper in there, like a dam almost, out of aluminum foil. And because we had the leftover potatoes, I actually used that to fix the little bit of a gap where it didn't quite meet. So, you know, good as new, and now this is dinner for tonight, and it's not slopped all over in the pan and all lopsided, and, you know, because, you know, this would be all potatoes over here and, you know, this much stuff inside. I will probably do this recipe for shepherd's pie at some point in the future, although, like I said, we have a second one of these that we've frozen for another couple of meals, so it'll probably be a little while before we need to make another one, but I know there's interest, so we'll see. All right, we're back. It's been a couple of hours. I let things get away from me for a little while there, so it may have even overproofed. But what we need to do now is punch this down and shape it into something that will make it a decent loaf. So we've got a greased, I don't know, standard size bread pan. I don't know what size that actually is now that I think about it. 9 1/4 by 5 1/4. 2 3/4 deep. All right, so I like to avoid putting too much flour down for this because we don't want to do a lot to this dough. We just kind of want to get it shaped. Kind of push it down a little bit in the pan. Oop. Oop. Get it sort of formed into a rectangle-ish. And I'm going to take, starting at the top, and fold it over a little bit and kind of press it into itself. And do that again. And again. And again. Ooh, got a little unwieldy. Alright, now this is a greased, ready to go tin. We're going to plunk it in. Make sure that the seam side is down, and it's probably going to be a pretty lopsided, not so professional looking loaf of bread, but we'll see. So what we want to do now is let this proof again for, I don't know, maybe half hour, maybe an hour. I don't know how long it will really take. We want it to, you know, again, poof up and kind of, you know, look more like a loaf of bread, and then we'll put it in the oven. One thing that I did not mention earlier in this is that I did not have yeast. And, you know, I told you that, you know, you do this by saving, you know, a golf ball sized chunk of dough from a previous loaf that used yeast, and then you can kind of keep doing that. Well, you know, if you don't make bread all the time, then that's kind of useless to you. And if you didn't just make bread, then that's kind of useless to you. So what I actually did was we ordered pizza from a local pizza place a few nights ago. And I ordered or asked them for, and they gladly sold me for a couple bucks, a small pizza's worth of pizza dough. So I've just kept that in the fridge, and every time I wanted to make bread, I've pulled off a chunk of it, thrown it in a bowl with some flour and some water, and let it go for 12 to 24 hours, and then done as exactly as I'm showing you. I mean, it's not necessarily impossible to get bread, but it's nice to make something homemade too, and it's not hard, as you're seeing here. So again, we're going to let this sit for maybe an hour, come back to it, and hopefully we'll be ready to go in the oven then, and we'll see you then. All right, we're back. So this has been proofing in the pan again for about another 30 minutes. At this point, it could probably proof a little bit longer, but you know, I don't want to push it. I just kind of want to get it in the oven at this point. It's kind of late. I started on this like 5:30 in the afternoon, and some delays in between, and you know, the first proof and everything. It's getting late. So the oven is preheated to 350. I know this because I have oven thermometers, which are always a good idea. Your oven built-in thermometer lies to you. I have two because they came in a 2-pack and they were cheap, and it tells me that they were, in fact, 350 on both sides. I've seen it lopsided sometimes where, for whatever reason, the temperature doesn't register the same on both sides of the oven, but always give your oven, I don't know, an extra 5-10 minutes to preheat if you're not sure, or if you don't have a thermometer. And that's it. We'll come back and check this in about 25 to 30 minutes and see how it's looking. All right, so it's been in the oven for about 30 minutes now, and I think we're ready. Now, I want to take this out and cool it on the wire rack right away. So, there's our loaf of bread. Now we got to let this cool completely before we can slice into it. So we'll be back one more time to check it out. All right, here we are at the end of a fairly long process. Let's slice our bread. I don't have a very good serrated knife. yeah, got a nice soft bread. I'm gonna cut the end here. Kind of like a cross between a sourdough and a hearty white bread. Would make really good toast. Some butter on there, strawberry jam, a little bit of peanut butter, Nutella. You know, maybe just have a plate with a little bit of all of them. Try not to talk on the mouthful, but it's tasty bread. So that's really it for this one. You know, like I say all the time, subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. If there's a recipe you want me to try or something you want me to try, a challenge, I'm up for a challenge in this pandemic pantry times. So put it down in the comments, and we'll catch you next time.